welcome back. Today we have another guest from mainland China Alibaba Group, Ms. Sharon Gai. Hey Sharon, how are you?
Hi Joseph, how are you?
Thank you for joining us. And today we have a new face because some of the guests joining us today has already been joining our show previous years, and we have a new face today. And thank you so much. I know that today you are taking your vacation time to join us. Thank you again.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Right. So, well, we all know that Alibaba is a big company in e-commerce. It's a leading company in mainland China, and also your platform is serving many other people also all around the world. Well, in particular, in the last 6 months during the COVID-19, I think I'm sure there's more and more people purchasing online. So can you tell us a little bit about how things going with Alibaba in the last 6 months?
Sure. So for us in mainland China, the virus actually started in January 20th, or around January 20th is when our growth rate of confirmed cases became an exponential spike in terms of a graph standpoint. And that was when Taobao and Tmall, so that is the e-commerce platform that we operated in China. That's when Tmall saw an extremely unprecedented spike in user growth, in GMV usage, and in the daily active user count. And for us, a lot of our merchants had difficulty in fulfilling all the needs because, first off, right around January 20th was also during Chinese New Year. So during Chinese New Year, all merchants before 2 weeks prior to Chinese New Year would actually stop production. They would stop their factories. They're telling everyone to go home. So we're all on vacation at that time. And then it was right around that time that a lot of the confirmed cases went up and the lockdown began and people could not go outside. So we actually went back to work a lot sooner than we had wanted to, or that we thought that we would go back to. And there were a lot of changes in all of our business units, from Taobao to Tmall to Hema, which is our offline grocery store. And so it'd be very interesting to share with everyone all of the things that we had to adjust to face the pandemic.
Right. Do you see during the pandemic, there are some new type of customers, like in particular will be purchasing more online?
Yeah, we saw a huge rise in what we call the gray hair category.
Elderly,
so in Tmall,
right?
The elderly, that's right. So in Tmall, we categorize our consumer profiles into 8 big types of consumer buckets. One of which actually normally has a very low penetration rate, are the white hair or the gray haired community. And that's simply because our e-commerce app is more oriented towards a more internet-oriented community. It's more oriented towards people of a younger generation. But when people are all stuck at home, people had no other choice but to use something like Taobao and Tmall to shop for basic needs, so even for food. So normally in China, in mainland China, food is, the e-commerce penetration rate for food is only around 5%. So still most of our purchases for food is offline. So that's either in a wet market or a supermarket or what we call a 早市. A lot of people will get up very early at 6 a.m. to go to their local sort of community farm to buy stuff. And so when everybody is locked in at home, the people who are normally in charge of buying groceries and food items like this are the older community. And so they had to learn how to use Taobao and Tmall. So we adjusted our product a bit to adjust to their needs. We adjusted our product title so that they could understand it better. Yeah, so that was definitely one of the consumer groups that we got a chance to serve better during that time.
Yeah. I'm sure there's, there's a lot of growth area, but certainly from the consumer standpoint and from operator like yourself would have to adapt a lot of changes during the last few months. So I guess let's not to let our audience anymore wait, and I'm sure everybody would like to hear a lot more from Alibaba, in particular in the last 6 months. So why don't Sharon, why don't you help to share your presentation to us? Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Gai. I'm the Director of Global Key Accounts at Tmall at Alibaba Group. And it's definitely a pleasure today to share with you some of the recent e-commerce updates after COVID from China. So I'll first take everyone through a general company overview because many of us in mainland China are very familiar with Alibaba Group and its business units, while some other people might not be. So I'll go through a general overview of us as a company. Then I'll go through some of the things that the company did during as a response once COVID had happened. And then I'll share some of the emerging trends from e-commerce during and after COVID, and also how some of our brands have responded. So without further ado, I'll introduce from the beginning. So Alibaba was created in December 1999 by Jack Ma, who used to be an English teacher. He started his company with a group of 18 of his students. And for the first 6 months, his company was made out of an apartment in Hangzhou. This apartment we still retain today, actually, and we keep it for our new special projects. But his initial goal with his 18 students was to bring Chinese businesses online. And so the way that most of the world know about us or Alibaba is Alibaba.com. Which is a wholesale B2B product that serves to bring online a lot of the Chinese factories and suppliers in a sort of yellow pages fashion, so that they can be discovered by other buyers from around the world. So that was the first product, called Alibaba.com. And since the very beginning, our mission was to make it easy to do business anywhere. The last 4 words in the digital era is something that our CEO had added last year in our investors conference. And ever since COVID, we believe in that mission so much more because of all of the digital transformation that all of our brands and merchants had to go through. So when we look at Ali, we divide it usually into 4 major parts. So we have first the commerce piece, and this is usually what most consumers know of us. We have our service piece, our entertainment piece, and our data technology piece. I'll go through a small introduction of each. So within commerce, we'll divide our commerce business units into online and offline. So the online BUs that we have are Taobao, Tmall, Tmall Global, Juhuasuan, Rural Taobao. Those are our B2C or C2C consumer-facing e-commerce platforms. In our overseas markets, we also have Lazada, that's catering to Southeast Asia, and AliExpress, that's catering to parts of Europe, Middle East, Brazil. In our offline space, we have Homa, which is a online supermarket, but also it has offline stores. We have Sun Art, Suning, Yintai. Those are all department stores, offline department stores or retailers. And we're slowly going into the management of convenience stores or mom and pop shops through a new business unit that started a couple of years ago called Ling Shou Tong. In our services piece, we have what we call Fliggy. So that is the equivalent of what one can understand as hotel.com or kayak.com. It's a platform where you can purchase travel tickets. We have Ele.me and Kobe that recently merged together for local services. That's the equivalent, if you're in Southeast Asia right now, it's the equivalent of Grab Food or Food Panda. We have AMAP, so that is similar to Google Maps, our Maps application. And then in our entertainment space, we have Youku and Tudo, which are two UGC video content platforms. UC Browser, which is a browser that's similar to Google Chrome. Some other smaller business units like Ali Music, Ali Sports, Ali Entertainment are all directions that the company wants to work on. So a couple of years ago, Jack had started a new initiative called the Double H strategy. So for the future of our company, we're definitely going into what we call health and happiness. So that is why you'll see some of the new smaller business units working towards that goal. Down at the bottom, we have our data technology pillars. So first off, there's Cainiao, and that's responsible of our logistics of all of our products from our merchants to our consumers. Ali Mama, which is similar to Google AdWords, or it's our internal in-app marketing mechanism for our brands to use. We have Ant Financial, which processes all of our financial transactions between our merchants and our consumers. And then, of course, all of this sits on our cloud infrastructure, or what we also have carved out to serve external businesses, and we call that Ali Cloud. So these are the four core pieces that make up Alibaba, and that is why when it's all sort of working together, we call ourselves a digital economy. So when our company turned 18, in 2018, Jack had said we want to, for the next 18 years, be working on 3 goals. So we want to work on serving 2 billion customers. We want to be serving 10 million SMEs, but not just having 10 million companies work with us, but 10 million companies that are profitable when they're working with us, and to also create 100 million jobs. So zooming into our first goal a bit, our consumer goal. Right now, our total number of consumers that we're serving is around 860 million annual active users, of which 730 million are in China and 130 are outside of China. So we call those overseas consumers. And because we want to reach that 2 billion mark by 2036, a huge initiative in the company is globalization. So that is the globalization of many of the different business units that I had just mentioned in the first slide of the digital economy slide. So we are working in globalizing Cainiao, our delivery system, and building warehouses abroad. We want to be globalizing our e-commerce systems, so not just the ones that are already global like AliExpress and Lazada, which are already overseas, but we also want to be globalizing something like Tmall. So Tmall actually serves consumers outside of China. Joseph in Hong Kong might actually use Tmall or Taobao yourself for some. So we're catering to Hong Kong consumers. We also sell in Taiwan right now. We also cover Macau. And we'll also cover some other countries like Australia, Canada, and US. But these are mainly what we call 海外华人, or what we call overseas Chinese. The goal, however, is to eventually cater to the localized population also. And that's definitely something that our team is working on. And then we have the global buy pillar that's mostly in charge of imports. So the one that Chinese people know best is Tmall Global, that currently imports about 80,000 brands from around the world. And then for Ant Financial, Ant has its own set of BUs that it's working on globalizing. So we might know that Ant is going to go public soon in this year. And so in India, Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, it has its own joint ventures in bringing the Alipay system that we use in China to be taking that system abroad. And then finally, we have our travel business unit, Fliggy, that's in charge of what we call 全球游. But however, during COVID, Fliggy is having a tough time globalizing because Chinese people can no longer freely go out. But it has also had its own internal transformation. So right now, what we have seen is, number one, it's working a lot on its domestic business, but number two, a lot of our overseas Fliggy employees are doing a lot of live streams. So I actually recently just watched a live stream of the Louvre Museum in Paris, a destination that a lot of Chinese tourists go to, that they're instead changing into a live stream business model, which is pretty interesting. So next I will share some bits of what Ali had experienced during COVID. So COVID-19 is actually the second pandemic to hit us as a company. In 2003, when SARS came about, one of our employees was actually confirmed as a positive case after she left Guangzhou after a business conference. And back then, that was when Jack was still in charge. It was actually right around the time that he planned to launch Taobao as a business unit. And that day, he said Taobao would still be launching in time and on schedule. And even if we have SARS, we'll still try to manage. And so that day, May 10th, he asked everyone in the company to take home their computers and printers. And back then we had fax machines, and to take all of that home and to start working from home. So when Taobao was first born, the customer service people that would pick up the phone when a customer had a problem with his or her order was actually the family members of our employees who would answer these questions. So it then became for us a remembrance day of, in every May 10th, every year, we invite all of our family and friends to come on campus. And we celebrate what we call Ali Day as a remembrance of even when we had to face an unforeseeable pandemic like this, that we were still able to launch a business. So from the SARS playbook and from the experience that we had there, almost immediately, Daniel Zhang, which is our current CEO, he set up what we call a Virus Combat Command Center on January 21st. And that was mainly to be a command center internally for us, for the employees internally to Alibaba, and to figure out how each business unit was going to adjust during this time. And also on the 21st, that's right around Chinese New Year. So at this time, technically, everyone was already at home. We were already with our families, but we were still able to communicate because we now function off of DingTalk, which is an internal Alibaba messaging platform. And so all of our meetings were organized on DingTalk. And then 3 days later, we set up a Wuhan Virus Combat Emergency Response Team. And that team was mainly responsible for importing a lot of the PPE that we had. So almost immediately we saw masks and all sort of protective equipment was sold out on Taobao. So we had to figure out ways to import the stock from outside of China. So Tanya opened up what we call a green terminal, that whoever wanted to donate to this response team or to donate their PPE to the Wuhan hospitals, they can use Tanya for free to ship this equipment into China. And then after a couple of more days and months, during COVID, from a e-commerce platform perspective, I'll share some of the trends that we noticed that we saw online. So this is a map of all of the different categories that we see on Taobao and Tmall that experienced a substantial difference in uptake in sales during the pandemic. So on the right, in the red circles, those are what we call the short-term stock-up categories. And instant food and home hygiene were definitely high up on that list to be the first items that had a huge uptick in sales. And then we have what we call the meat, vegetables, and grocery, eggs, body care, and these sort of everyday FMCG items, and also infant food that experienced also a huge spike in year-over-year sales growth. The categories of luxury, beauty, cosmetics, skincare, they definitely experienced a dip in their year-over-year sales growth. But this is only a map of the first 13 days of Lunar New Year. So that extends to early February. And this chart is more so on how these categories recovered after the fact. So going into February, March, April, and then May. So the group of products that are still undergoing continuous boom are still some of these household products that people have bought, including food items. And now a lot of people have adjusted to cooking at home and not going into restaurants. And actually at that time, restaurants were also closed. So people were still largely in a stay-at-home situation. Some items that we saw that had a huge boom because people wanted to, what we call 囤货. And what that means is people wanted to stock up on these type of items, but then eventually it fell because eventually the supermarkets and malls opened up again. And then we have what we call a V-shape type of category. So those were the items that dipped in their sales throughout the last couple of months, but then slowly had a recovery. And those are some of your everyday items. And then we'll have the what we call the sharp decline and slow recovery, or an L-shaped category item. So these are items that might not be recovering so well compared to the previous three. During lockdown, what we noticed as a insight for a lot of our brands, and in how we noticed our brands reacted, and then later what became a driver of growth for them is live streaming. So live streaming was actually, I would say, rather popular in 2019, but it saw a huge spike in 2020, right after COVID had happened. So in the past 3 years, Taobao had already been trying to grow its live stream ecosystem, but I guess COVID was the event that really pushed this trend hugely forward. So in 2019, we already had about 420 billion RMB of GMV to be coming from live stream. And now it actually represents 4% of total online sales with a very high growth rate. During COVID, we saw 3 times the number of products that were live streamed since 2019, and double the number of brands that were doing live streaming. So what used to happen is the photo that you see here, it's a photo of Wei Ya. So she's one of our very popular live streamers. A lot of people would be watching her 直播间 or her live stream room. But what happened after COVID is, almost every brand started their own live stream room. And that was a thing that became a norm. That was the big contrast, is before, if you were a brand and you wanted to participate in the action of live stream, you give your product to Wei Ya for her to stream for you. But now, every brand has their own live stream room, and they're trying to grow their own internal live streamer to retain that connection with their consumers. So that was the big difference that we noticed. So let's delve a bit deeper in Wei Ya, because I don't know, do you watch her in Hong Kong at all? I don't know if people elsewhere in other countries watch her.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, if you have a chance, definitely take a look. Her show is every weekday at 8 p.m. She'll promptly come on. She does have many different, like her success does have a recipe to it. There is a reason why she's the biggest one. And there is a reason why it's very difficult to get onto her live stream room. So first of all, she has a 200 people team behind her that serves in picking products. And so if say for instance, I don't know, a detergent brand wanted her to live stream her product, her team will then take a similar product from many, many other competitors and do a compare and contrast of all the different types of detergents to determine what is the best one. Of course, Weiya has huge say in choosing at the end of the day which merchant to go with or which brand to be promoting. But all of the products that she does live stream is trialed and tested. Because for her as a live streamer, she needs to build a reputation too. If she is simply going with, the merchant that is willing to give her the highest amount of money or the biggest commission sale, but the product is not good, then her reputation will be the one that's damaged. And there was actually a couple of cases with her and also another live streamer called Austin Lee. We call him Ko Hong Ge. I don't know if you've heard of Austin, Joseph, or if you've ever watched him, but he's another live streamer that we also watch in China. There were some instances where the product that they, I think he was trying to sell a pot, and he said it was a 不粘锅, like a pot, like a non-stick frying pan. Mm-hmm. But in his live stream room, as he was cooking an egg, the egg clearly stuck onto the pan, and couldn't, he couldn't. It was quite embarrassing for him in the live stream room. So once those sort of things happen, immediately many fans started taking photos, screenshotting, like what's wrong with this product, and it went on to Weibo, and he had to outright apologize to all of his fans. So usually they'll try to pick products that they really do believe in and really try to avoid any product that will have any type of problems. And there could be many problems, not just a problem with a product itself, but also with logistics, with 缺货. So if they were to live stream, they have to have a certain amount of stock ready from the brand or merchant for them to sell. They don't want to be in a situation where they're overselling and then they can't fulfill the orders to their consumers. So all of these things are factors that they're considering when they're taking in a product link from one of their brands or merchants. And then what Weiya will do is, because it's really almost like a show now, because her show starts at 8 p.m. every weekday, and sometimes she'll invite famous celebrities onto her show to live stream with her and to test the product and to play with the product with her. That now a lot of celebrities in China are also starting their own live stream rooms, whether that's live streaming with Weiya or on their own. And she's brought a lot of, she's very successful in bringing a lot more eyeballs into her live stream room. And then, of course, she has her famous trademark IP of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then she puts out the product link for people to buy. So it's a very interesting psychological selling mechanism for you to want to tap into that link to buy the product right away. Yeah, so that's things about Weiya. And then definitely another driver for growth that we've seen is what we call new retail. So new retail is a concept that came out a couple of years ago that Jack had introduced. And quite simply what it is, it's just the conjoining of online and offline synergy together. So in the first photo, we have what we call a traditional offline system. If you are an offline store, there are many weaknesses for offline stores when it comes to consumers. But when this brand not only has an offline store and an online store on a digital platform, they can very easily link the two together and then serve the customer better. So this is another case for one of the department stores that we have called In Time. So In Time opened a Tmall flagship store a while ago, and it came in very handy and very useful during COVID times, because when it was around February, March, we had a lot of restriction with going outside. Also, a lot of shopping malls were just completely shut down, completely closed. And so what In Time did is it sent its sales associates, so these are the sales associates that work in their offline stores, to set up a live stream camera and to start introducing products from the 柜台, or from the counter that they're standing on. And in terms of logistics, the product can be seen in their live stream room, and consumers can directly purchase from the Tmall store after they watch this live stream. So it was great in that it was very agile in placing what was originally offline store sales associates to an online job, because there was not that much traffic in offline stores anyway, so they could have that time and the space to do so. And traditionally, In Time would be closed at 10 p.m. every day, but because they were live streaming and because there was a Tmall flagship store, they were able to be selling 24 hours. Another retailer for furniture that also opened its Tmall flagship store during the pandemic was IKEA. So when IKEA launched, so IKEA is very known for their maze-like showroom where the consumers can go in and flop on the bed and eat a hot dog and, you know, experience the whole space and pick out different furniture and play with colors and whatnot. So what IKEA did is they added to their flagship store a 3D version of their showroom. So as a consumer, you can walk in, you can tap into the room and flip around, and you can turn the whole showroom around to look at all the different showrooms as if you were in an actual physical space. And so that was something that IKEA did. And so to just sort of sum up the new retail piece is, this is a pretty good summary chart. So the top gray part is what is a traditional role of e-commerce as a standalone sales channel. And then in the bottom is how we hope e-commerce will evolve into when it combines with offline. So what we noticed is traditionally a lot of brands will just put their clearance SKUs online, and that was a way for them to differentiate with their consumers that, you know, if you're looking for the new products, go to my offline store. If you're just looking for a discount, go to the online side. But what they noticed is this will create a cannibalization system. So then their next step was, okay, what if we just exclusively give SKUs to our online store, so that these are just SKUs that our online Tmall store would have. But then the problem that emerged is the lack of availability of stock between the two channels or inventories. So what's best, or what we recommend as best, is if the online and offline inventory could be as one, or that's what we call cloud inventory. And it actually helps a lot with delivery too, in that if you're managing an e-commerce shop like a Tmall flagship store, it's actually much better for you to ship a product that is much closer to your customer so that it gets to them faster than shipping a product from your main e-commerce warehouse that serves all of your e-commerce sales. And so this is definitely a piece that if you're a brand in China, you can realize. And this is also something that we want to help a lot of the brands overseas that we're working with realize as well. So in Lazada, AliExpress, and in Tmall overseas. And to wrap up, a couple of months ago, Daniel Zhang, our CEO, had introduced what we call a 2020 Spring Thunder initiative. So it's an initiative for calling a lot of the business units to set out some new goals during this pandemic. So he mandated some of the external facing B2C e-commerce platforms to help Chinese SMEs to expand into new markets via AliExpress, Lazada, and Tmall overseas, for Ant to alleviate financing challenges for some of their SMEs, for Cainiao to lower its logistics costs when it's dealing with its own type of merchants, and for Tmall and Tmall Global to work with more overseas brands, so more global brands to tap into the Chinese consumer market, which is a market that has been a bit more been back to normal versus other markets. And so this is something that internally we're all working and striving towards in the company. As we start to work more with consumers in Hong Kong, we definitely want to also work with more Hong Kong businesses. We know that the pandemic situation is also quite severe in Hong Kong, and a lot of businesses are affected. And so I'm definitely here to help answer any questions or link any businesses to anyone internally in the company. Yeah, and that's
thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon, by sharing us the great stories about Alibaba Group, and particularly in the last 6 months. We hear a lot of great story about Alibaba, how money making and a lot of good business idea going around. But I guess from another angle looking into it, as Alibaba Group is becoming so big of a company in mainland China, I think people also want to see more about the other side, is how would Alibaba Group providing some social responsibility by helping different groups of people during the COVID-19. Sharon, can you share that part with us?
Sure. So apart from some of the things that we did to accumulate masks and personal protective equipment, so during the pandemic, Cainiao opened what we call a green terminal, so that anyone can use Cainiao's international shipping services for free if they had anything to do with personal protective equipment. And then in terms of DingTalk, so that is our internal messaging platform that we also open up to other companies and schools to use. So the DingTalk CEO made a promise to provide the service for free for a couple of months, while a lot of small, medium businesses for the first time are experiencing remote work. So unlike some of the more mature companies outside of China, where remote ways of working is pretty normal, for a lot of Chinese companies, this is the first time that they're adjusting to remote work. And so DingTalk sort of saw itself as a leader in that. It also let a lot of students around China to open up classes again using DingTalk. So a lot of classrooms and teachers started using DingTalk to teach again. In terms of Alipay, so after the lockdown was over, people were actually very used to shopping online. That Alipay had a agreement with the government to say, we will, as a platform, give out coupons for consumers to spend in offline stores. So for people in Hangzhou, at least, everyone received 50 RMB to use on at any offline store. So that was Alipay's way to sort of rejuvenate the offline economy again. So every business unit sort of has its own social responsibility or can decide on what to do from a social responsibility perspective. But for sure, we definitely take recovery as a very serious and important topic.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And I could imagine if this is a physical event, there will be people lining up out there for questions for you. And I think I'm taking advantage of this is a virtual event, so I don't have much pressure from the venue, and I could ask you a lot of questions, but I know that we don't want to drag you too long. So let me ask you one last question for a lot of audience, particularly they may be from other region of the world. I'm sure many of the companies, they are interested about selling into China. And during the pandemic, there would be some products that are, in particular, increasing demand from mainland Chinese demanding from overseas, or vice versa. There may be some products that are reducing demand because they could probably get local supply already. So Sharon, can you just one last question? Can you share with us, what would be the products that are increasing demand, and what would be like not as good as before?
Yeah. So all, or not all, but many health related products is definitely a category that is on demand. So a lot of people, more than before, are caring a lot now about their health, and they're watching what they eat, and they're reading a lot more on diet and nutrition and boosting immunity still. So any product that's related to health nutrition or health supplements, those are still definitely in very high demand. Because many Chinese people can't exit out of China. So a lot of the goods that we see selling on our platform called Tmall Global is in high demand. So a lot of luxury goods and bags, fashion items. So these were beauty, perfume. So a lot of these items that we normally buy in a duty-free store when we're at an airport, when we're traveling, all of these purchases are now made on Tmall Global.
Right.
So these are definitely all brands or foreign brands that Chinese consumers are interested in purchasing.
Right. All right. Thank you, Sharon. And I hope that I'm sure there will be still other questions, but I think we are done for today. And I will wish you good health and stay safe, and hope that the business and the community will resume back to normal as soon as possible. And wish to see you next time in person, physically in Hong Kong or in our next show.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.